heard of energy vampires? Like how your coffee maker, printer, and speakers use electricity that you have to pay for if they're still plugged in, even when they're off? What if you got only a certain allotment of kilowatt hours for your house for the day? You could do way more of what you want with the limited energy you're given if you unplug all of that other stuff. There's something that almost everyone does that is pretty much the same. We all have a certain amount of mental and emotional energy available to us in a day. If you stop wasting it the way everyone else does, you'll have way more available to direct toward things that actually make a difference. You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 220, What's Draining You? Shift from frustration to focus. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello, my friend, and welcome to the podcast. I hope you are doing exceptionally well today. How is your understanding of hormone replacement therapy going? Did learning about 10 common mistakes with hormone treatment help you get a little bit clearer in your thinking about how you want to approach your hormone health? Today, we're talking about what's draining you, shifting from frustration to focus. When it feels like nothing is going right, you can't force yourself to sleep, you can't do the kind of workouts you know are critical for your health span, you're in pain from an injury that won't get better, your doctor tells you things are fine, and even when you know that things are not fine, your blood pressure and cholesterol are still high even though you've doubled your exercise and only eat rabbit food, whatever. It's easy to get mad, frustrated, discouraged, or overwhelmed. It's so easy to let everything that's not going the way we know it should be going start to mess with our heads. That should have worked. I shouldn't have to deal with this. That person shouldn't be acting that way. This shouldn't be my problem. That price should not have increased. This is not fair, and it shouldn't be windy today. So let's talk about the key to success in every situation. Pretty big promise, right? Do you know much about the Navy SEALs? I don't really, so you probably know more than I do, but I read a lot of what Navy SEALs write about mindset and mental toughness in approaching problems. Can you imagine gathering all of the intel you can possibly find, thinking deeply about it, discussing it with your best-in-class team, and coming up with a really awesome plan that is all laid out step by step? You rehearse the plan and practice the plan and are prepared to execute the plan. Then when you arrive at your mission and it's go time, like if this doesn't go well, you or your best friend or both of you will be killed and the world will lose a high-level operative with immense potential. It's pandemonium. Nothing is as it was expected to be, and there are even more mortal dangers that you haven't even had the capacity to imagine or prepare for before. So I'm sure you know that a Navy SEAL wouldn't take to the bed, like Leanne Morgan would say, or sit around eating a whole pan of Jell-O while watching Wheel of Fortune with their little mama. So what do? They fall back on their training that is the key to success in any situation. They don't waste time fighting an unwinnable battle. While most people would either run, hide, or spin out worrying about all the things that have gone wrong and are yet to go wrong, what should not be happening or what is unfair or scary, Navy SEALs ask themselves one question. What in this situation can I control immediately? I love Stoic philosophy, but not as much as Ryan Holiday. He has written multiple best-selling books about Stoicism and is probably the best living expert on the Stoics and their teachings. According to him, quote, The single most important practice in Stoic philosophy is differentiating between what we can change and what we can't, what we have influence over and what we do not. A flight is delayed because of weather. No amount of yelling at an airline representative will end a storm. No amount of wishing will make you taller or shorter or born in a different country. No matter how hard you try, you can't make someone like you. And on top of that, the time spent hurling yourself at these immovable objects is time not spent on things that we can change. The recovery community practices something called the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Addicts cannot change the abuse suffered in childhood. They cannot undo the choices they have made or the hurt they have caused, but they can change the future through the power they have in the present moment. As Epictetus said, they can control the choices they make right now. The same is true for us today. If we can focus on making clear what parts of our day are within our control and what parts are not, we will not only be happier, we will have a distinct advantage over other people who fail to realize they are fighting an unwinnable battle." End quote. So the direct quote from Epictetus that Ryan is referencing there is, "The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own." End quote. So Epictetus is pretty awesome. I especially love that part about where then do I look for good and evil? How easy is it for us to think of the things outside of us as evil or unfair or unfortunate or bad or wrong? In episode 191, we talked about professional poker player Annie Duke and how she makes the case that the best game to mirror the experience of life is poker. She has a lot of reasons why, which you can listen to in that episode 191. It's a good one. But my point here is that she became one of the very best poker players in the world. And it wasn't because she got lucky and got dealt better hands, or because she figured out how to control the cards she was dealt. That'd be cheating. Being an elite poker player is about accepting what you cannot control and controlling what you can. The minute you get caught up feeling sorry for yourself or jealous of someone else because of the cards you were dealt, you're no longer playing at an elite level. When you focus single-mindedly on what is within your control, you start to improve. I remember in her book, her talking about how she got better at poker. She would get together with her brother and some of his high-level poker buddies after games to discuss their hands and their choices and bets, and she learned very quickly that they were absolutely not interested at all in listening to any complaining about getting dealt certain hands or other players catching a lucky break. They would have absolutely none of that. If she wanted to learn from them, it was strictly about, given these cards, did I make the best possible choice? That was it. And it was hard. But when she was able to excise any energy or attention to things that were not within her direct control during the game and just discuss what she did have control over, her choices, she got way, way better very quickly, like winning over $2 million better, by making the difficult choice over and over again to not waste any mental or emotional or any other kind of energy on thinking about things that were not within her control. Even though that is a choice, it often doesn't feel like one. I think most of the time we don't even realize that we're leaking emotional or mental energy, especially when everyone else around us is doing the same thing. That's why Annie's group of her brother's friends was so helpful in catapulting her to poker stardom. Yes, they meticulously went over every decision in detail to see where she could have made better choices, but more importantly, because they noticed and would not tolerate 1 second of wasted energy complaining about anything that was not within her complete control. Genius. High-performance expert Alan Stein Jr. said, "Learning how to control the controllables is imperative to maximizing performance. When you get distracted by things you don't control, your performance suffers. We have limited energy, attention, and resources, so put them where they can actually make a difference. End quote. That's so good to actually ponder, like really sit down and think through. Your performance in any and all areas of your life suffers when you get distracted by things that you don't control. We only have a certain amount of energy, attention, and resources, so don't waste them on things that you can't do anything about anyway. It's so easy to do without even realizing it. People do it around us all the time, and it's really easy to join in. I recently re-listened for the third time to the book Chasing Excellence by Ben Bergeron. It's one of my favorites. Ben was the coach to CrossFit Games winners Katrin Davidsdottir and Matt Fraser. So the book talks about that. It's right up my alley because I love that stuff. But anyway, in the book, he talks about a big part of making Matt and Katrin champions was not wasting any mental juice thinking about things that they could not control. The hot sun beating down on the StubHub practice field, the cold water, the fact that during the 2016 CrossFit Games, the organizers unexpectedly put all participants on an airplane to an undisclosed distant arena, and they'd never done that before, forcing them to get very little sleep. All of that. During training, he'd even have them do this high-performance exercise over and over till it became second nature to them. Like they had to actually sit down with a pencil and a piece of paper and do this. Do you want to do it too? Yeah, you do. It's good stuff. Okay, so there's a leading teacher of Japanese psychology named Greg Kretsch who wrote a book called The Art of Taking Action. He says, whenever we're facing a challenging situation, one of the wisest things we can do is to take a few minutes to distinguish between what's controllable and what isn't controllable. This is one of the key elements of Morita therapy, and it's an example of how something very simple can also be very helpful. I suggest you use a pencil and paper. Simply divide the paper into 2 columns, and as you reflect on the situation, place each element into the proper column. What you end up with is a map that shows what you can work on, actions which are controllable by you, and what you cannot control. This empowers you to move forward and do what you can do. End quote. So you get this piece of paper, divide it in 2. Half of it is things I cannot control, and the other half is things that I do have control over. It sounds simple because it kind of is, and simple things are easy to do, which makes them easy not to do. It's tempting to think you can just do this in your head, but if you actually take 3 minutes to get out a piece of paper and fill out your 2 columns, you'll get so much more power. Because you won't be wasting energy on the things that will not give you results. Katrin's CrossFit performances went from pretty okay to winning the whole thing twice, I think, once she stopped giving any of her energy away to things that were not within her control. She and Ben Bergeron actually never once talked about winning the games, like not ever one time. What they talked about were things that were within her control. Winning the games wasn't, but performing her best was. After going through this exercise with the paper and the 2 columns, she performed better because she had more energy and focus available to give everything she had to the one event she was currently in at the time. None of it was siphoned off thinking about how the other women were better at rope climbs or pegboards than her, which they were. So, what's challenging or frustrating you right now? Get out a piece of paper and give this Morita therapy exercise a try. I've never heard of Morita therapy before, but this aspect of it is pretty great, so maybe it's wonderful. What would go in your columns? The primary things out of your control are results. Winning the CrossFit Games, winning a toe wrestling competition, becoming a champion worm charmer. That's a thing, apparently. Your reputation, whether people like you, whether they understand you, whether you'll get a promotion or a new job, getting married, making a big sale, losing 10 pounds of fat, not getting Alzheimer's disease, getting your fasting blood sugar below 90, getting your book published through a traditional publishing house, bonding with your horse, landing your nollie inward heel flip. That's a skateboarding thing. Bench pressing 200 pounds. Most actual results are not within your control. which is kind of awesome because then you can get back all of that emotional juice to infuse into things that you can control. Obviously, there are tons of other things besides results that are not within your control, like genetic mutations, neighbors showing up with platefuls of cookies, the weather, hormone dysregulation, injuries, the media, medical practice guidelines, food intolerances, what other people say about you, work projects, how other people make decisions for themselves, and anything that happened in the past. Next week, we're going to talk about how you can't control how much sleep your body produces. That's something else that's just not within your control. The list is pretty long. The longer the better, I say, because that's a whole heck of a lot of things you don't have to spend one more second worrying about or stressing over or trying to change. Given your challenge or frustration, what can you control? What can you direct all of your newly found energy and resources toward? Let's say you were trying to improve your future by investing money in different asset classes. You are putting 30% of your investments in real estate, 30% in stocks, 10% in bonds, 10% in crypto, 10% in commodities, and 10% in VHS tapes. If you took the time to evaluate the performance of your portfolio, you would notice that none of the money you were putting in VHS tapes was appreciating. It was like throwing your money in the garbage can. How long would it take you to stop investing in VHS? Once you got out of that investment group, you'd have 10% of your future and ongoing investment money to put somewhere else. How would you decide where to move the 10%? Probably to whatever is performing best or expected to have the highest returns with the lowest risk, right? I think it's helpful to think of moving your attention and energy from uncontrollables to controllables the same way. The same resources you already have can aggregate and compound to create way more impact when properly allocated. What can you control? Not the outcome usually, but you can control the process. And if you pick investing your resources into the highest leverage behaviors in your process, you're way more likely to get the outcome you want as a byproduct of your commitment to the process. You can control whether you show up to train at the gym. You can control what you do during your workout and how hard you push yourself. You can control what you do for recovery afterward. You can control what you seek out to learn to understand what your body needs better. You can control what nutrients you put in your body. You can control what time you go to bed. You can control whether you make an appointment to see a doctor who is qualified to help with hormone replacement. You can control watching for patterns in how you feel when you move a certain way or sleep a certain way or eat a certain way. You can control the elimination of foods from your diet for a certain period of time. You can control what distractions you allow to access your brain. Push notifications, email, news, social media. You control your inputs. Angry, ranting people, conspiracy theory people, good news people. You control your stimuli, the quality and timing of light you're exposed to, whether you filter your water or air. Most importantly, you control what you think about everything. Tony Robbins once said, "You want to change your life? Control the only thing you can control, the meaning you give something." Evaluating the meaning you give everything that happens is pretty huge. You can also control what you like and dislike. Did you know this? You can do this for lots of areas of your life, but if you want the results of a highly disciplined person in regards to your health as you move through your 40s and 50s, the best way to get yourself to do the things that are best for your current and future health is to love doing those things. And that's something that goes in the within my control column on your paper. If you could use some help falling in love with the highest leverage behaviors that will help you age at an elite level so you do them consistently because they're your favorite things to do, come join my yet unnamed program that will help you do just that. Head over to www.healthcouragecollective.com right now and get on the waitlist. It's an opportunity you don't want to miss. It's going to be a great way to connect with yourself and spend energy wisely on something completely within your control that will give you dividends for the rest of your life. How would your life be different if you looked forward to doing the things that you can't get yourself to do right now? How will your 70s and 80s be different if you consistently do the highest leverage healthy behaviors for the next 30 years? Or if you don't? Don't miss your chance to change your likes and dislikes and make doing the healthy thing and doing the most enjoyable thing the same. Life is hard. I hope you'll use this 2 columns on a piece of paper hack to figure out how to get the best leverage over your difficulties and frustrations. The same Stoic philosopher I mentioned earlier, Epictetus, once said, "The true woman is revealed in difficult times. So when trouble comes, think of yourself as a wrestler whom God, like a trainer, has paired with a tough young buck. For what purpose? To turn you into Olympic class material. But this is going to take some sweat to accomplish. From my perspective, no one's difficulties ever gave her a better test than yours. If you are prepared to make use of them the way a wrestler makes use of an opponent in peak condition." End quote. Okay, so I changed the word man to woman there and him to her, but I hope you'll take the opportunity to use something within your control, your opinion about why you've been given struggles in the first place, to get stronger and more forceful. Olympic class material, because the world needs the best that only you have to give. Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you take the energy you're wasting on anything that's not in your direct control and reallocate it to something that is. To the extent that you do, you'll become more successful than you realized was possible. And isn't that just so much fun? Next week, we're going to talk about DIY sleep therapy for insomnia. Until then, separate what you can control from what you can't. Forget about what you can't. Become unstoppable and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.